Hey everyone! So today it's going to be part 4 of our Photoshop classroom, and today we're going to look more in depth into how masking works and how adjustment layers work. Now, if you haven't watched the last previous video, the part 3, where we talk about selections and a bit of masking, please check that out first. It's going to be linked in the description down below. But to move on forward with a bit more advanced techniques for masking. Now, for me personally as an artist, I prefer using masking for almost everything. When it comes to selection, I like to use masking. When it comes to colors and adjustment layers, I prefer using masking. For me, masking is a non-destructive workflow, meaning that you do not break or kill the original image even if you copy it. At least the masks will be deleted if you do a mistake or if you have something wrong with the image itself. Alright, so let's look at what masking actually is. So I'm going to import here a picture of an eye, just to start. First rule is I always unlock my layer. There we go. So how does masking work? Masking can be found in multiple areas. Number one, if you have a layer, just like so, and let me just change its name to an eye, and I want to be able to mask this specific layer. Now, you have a few options to go to the masking, which is layer, layer mask, and you can say reveal all or hide all. Now, to understand what these are, the mask works in two colors and two colors only, black and white. If the mask is fully white, means that the layer itself, where you have the mask placed on it, it will show 100%. If it's black, the actual layer will be completely hidden, so transparent. So how do we use this as an artist? When my layer is white and I want to delete something, I take my brush tool, B tool on the keyboard, and I paint in black to remove some of the white, making things disappear. If it's the opposite and it's a black layer mask and I want to be able to reveal something, I paint in white. It's always the opposite. So here in this case, reveal all will be a white mask and hide all will be a black mask. But there's an easier way of finding this exact button. And it's on the bottom right. So with my layer selected, over here, it's called an add layer mask and has an icon of a white square with a black circle in the middle. Okay? By clicking on this button right now, it will create a white mask right here, revealing that nothing has changed in the picture. But what I can do for this specific layer, so make sure that when you're clicking on the layer, because you have two separate things here, I can click on the first one, which is my actual picture, and then I can click on the mask. When transforming a mask, make sure that you're always selecting on the mask itself, so the borders of this square is selected. So here, I'm going to select B on my keyboard or the brush tool, which is right here, and I'm going to make sure that my color is black. If my mask is white, my color has to be black. So if I paint, it's going to start removing information from my image. And since I don't have a background, it's going to be a transparent layer behind it. Okay? So that's the first step. Let me recreate a new one. Let me delete. Let me create a new mask, a fresh one. Now, for me to make everything disappear, so instead of painting in black completely right now, I can just press Control I on my mask. So my mask is selected. Yes, it is. Control I will make everything black. So if you look here, it's now black. If I press Control I, it's white and the picture gets revealed. Control I, black. So, sorry, I had to mute my mic for a second here. So how is this useful, you say? So with this mask, I can also use a lot of neat things. So here I can first of all Control I the mask, and on the bottom right here, it has an icon of a circle that is half white and half black. And these are the adjustment layers. Very important that some artists, what they do, let me just delete this, is that they go into image, adjustment, and then here. So all of these layers, all of these adjustments, so let me go through them one by one. Brightness and contrast reduces the amount of light and dark inside of your image. Levels, it basically understands the level of color and light inside of your image, and it has 3 points. It has the dark, the light, and the medium side. So let me show you what it does. Here it is. You have the dark right here. This is the normal in between grayscale, and you have the white. Okay, so wherever you move these, it will show you a different in color. Darken it, lighten it, but it doesn't do the same job as brightness and contrast. Here it understands more of how the grays behind the actual image will actually get adjusted. So curves basically creates a linear curve that you can adjust for light and dark. You can also change colors if you want to. If you want to go for the red, so more red or less red. But we're gonna go through these another video, and I'm gonna go into them in detail. All I'm trying to explain here is that image adjustment, all of these don't come with a separate layer and don't come with a separate mask, which is very dangerous. If I put, for an example, a hue saturation, which will allow me to change the color of my eye, the entire picture, it will be set in stone on my layer. I don't have anything to be able to remove this unless I undo the actual transformation, which is Control Z on my keyboard. So how do I do this in a non-destructive way so it doesn't affect the layer itself, the eye layer itself? Instead, it has a separate layer that I can delete anytime I want with the mask, and I can just do whatever I want with it. So here on the bottom right, I have add a new adjustment layer. It's right next to the mask, this one. And here I can put, for example, a hue saturation layer. Now, very important, I have as well two layers next to each other. This selection allows me to change the color, and this allows me to modify the mask for the hue saturation. So let's say for an example here, I go back to this layer on the left, right here, and I tell it that I want to change the color. Something like so. But in this case, I would like to change only the middle part of the iris and not the entire eye. Just this part. I can select my mask, press my B tool for brush, and I can paint in white. But here I have to inverse the mask. So Control I first, and I have to paint in white. Only on the eye itself, slowly transforming and changing the color. There we go. If I want to paint a little bit more, for an example, like maybe a makeup, I can start adding a little bit of makeup on top of the eye, for an example, with the same color as the iris. If I want to remove information, so let's say here, for an example, I overshot a little bit just on the top here. B, I can press the colors to go back to black, or if you want to switch between these two colors, so I have a white and I have a black here, so let me zoom in here so you can see better. I have a black and I have a white. The white is always the first primary color and the black is a secondary color. To switch between them, you press X. So I can go here to a black and remove a little bit of this information right here. That's about it to understand how these work. So I can add a little bit more of a color difference here. I can maybe add a little bit on the bottom right here. Seems like it's like some kind of makeup, and so on and so forth. Now, let's say for an example, I'm not at all happy with what I'm doing, and I want to completely delete this. I can just go to the layer, delete on my keyboard, and everything goes back to normal. My original layer, my original picture has not been destroyed, and that's very important for us as artists. We never want to be able to destroy or do something kind of modification wise to hurt our original image. Typically, artists kind of just do a small little duplicate layer. They copy the original one, so they call it, for example, original, and they lock it. So they go here, lock, and they hide it. That way they always have this kind of layer locked, saved, and nobody can touch it, and you cannot change it or modify it. But for me, it's just a waste of time. You can do it if you want to, but it's better to just know the proper workflow before you start Photoshop. And that's about it. So let's jump into something a bit more complex. So let me get this, and this is going to be a tutorial in the description. It's an actual other artist on YouTube that created this entire composition, so I'm going to be linking down below the actual tutorial, but I want to go a bit more in depth into what he did. Since he is doing a tutorial but it's very linear, I want to go step by step and explaining in much more details what is happening with all of the techniques he's using. So step number one, remove the locked layer. I'm going to zoom in here. So my first step is I want to remove the filament. So we're going to learn a new tool called the Spot Healing Brush tool, and it's over here, above the brush. So right here, I have spot healing brush tool. Alright, for different versions of Photoshop, you're gonna have it in different locations, so just try to find it. So spot healing brush tool, what does it do? It has a brush icon, and it understands that in this circle, right here, in this area that I selected so far, it has a black area, so the filament is black, and the entire surrounding area is white. Technically gray white for the background, or the light bulb color. So in this area, what is software gonna do, or Photoshop gonna do, I understand, is that what is the primary color in the circle? 99% of it is basically the background color, so white, and the rest is black. So when I click and drag, it will understand that I need to change whatever is the unknown, which is the black, into the background color, which is the white. So all I do is click and drag, and it's changing to the background color. Let me zoom out and do this piece as well. So you're gonna get a little bit of kind of artifacts this way. It's very normal. Just re-click and drag and try to change it until it feels a little bit more like it belongs to the actual light bulb. There we go. So that being done, let's jump into masking and all of these kind of things. So I'm gonna get a few images here. I'm gonna first get some water, press enter, and I'm gonna rasterize the image since it's a smart object. If you don't know what smart objects are, please check out the other tutorials that I posted, maybe part 2. And I can't see what's behind my actual image, my water image. So I would like to drop the opacity. It's right here. With my water selected, opacity, I can just reduce it down to around 50%. That way I can see what's behind it. I can just position this horizon water right here in the right location. So let's talk about masking. I can for sure take the water, mask it if I want to, and delete all of the things I don't want. So by painting in black, I can just remove whatever I don't want. But let's go something a bit easier. I'm gonna go to my bulb layer. So I'm gonna hide this here on the right side, hide it. And I'm gonna see the bulb. I'm gonna take my quick selection tool, and I'm just gonna select the area where I want the water to lie. There we go. So that being done, I have the area selected. I'm gonna jump into the water layer. So I'm not doing anything. All I did was select, go to the water layer, select it, unhide it, and now click on the mask on the bottom right here. So by doing so, what's gonna happen? The software is gonna understand that on this specific layer, the water, you have a selection now that you got from the bulb, from the original layer. If you press mask, I will mask that area for you. So if I press right now, you can see that the water has the outline of the bulb embedded inside of it, and you can see how it's getting transformed. So less work for me. So what I'm going to do now is select the mask for the water, press B on my keyboard, and I'm going to paint in black to remove some of the over extended water. So right here, slowly removing it, all of those details, and over here, a little bit on the bottom. I just want to see a bit more of the glass on the bottom right here. And that's it. Now I do want to make the color a little bit heavier, but we're going to do that later. Next I want to get another one. This kind of bubble color effect right here. Perfect, it's in position. Now instead of doing exactly the same thing I did before, which was basically going to the bulb layer, the original layer, so I'm going to call this one bulb. There we go. So instead of going to the bulb layer, selecting the bulb and getting it over to the fizz and creating the actual mask layer, what I can do here, since I already have it, right here on the water, Alt, click on the layer itself, the mask layer, and drag up to the fizz. And now I have that area selected as well. I'm going to also modify a little bit of it, just hiding it a tiny bit more. So this is doable because my opacity on the brush right here, so as I'm painting, it's 23%. It's not 100%. If it was 100%, I would delete everything. It's like an eraser. I don't want that. I want to have a lot more control over the area I'm doing. And if you look at the mask itself, it's gray. I'm painting in gray slowly. If I keep painting, I'm deleting so much of the area, but I have to constantly press and create that color. So now let me bring it back. just going to Control Z a few times. There we go. To the original point. Alt clicking on the mask reveals what you are creating. Alright. So what I'm going to do here as well, this is something I didn't cover, excuse me, it's something I didn't cover in my original class this morning. So I am done with this adjustment and I'm very happy with it. What I can do here is merge these two layers together to form a single layer. They will lose their masks, as in they won't appear as having masks, but everything will stay the same. So if I right click on these two, so select the first one, Control select the next one, right click and say merge layers. They will become a single layer. And I'm doing this for one reason, because I would like to add a bit more effect on it. So here I can go into my Hue Saturation, so adjustment layers are on the bottom right, Hue Saturation, and I would like to deepen the colors a little bit here. Just like that. A bit too much maybe, and maybe change the color a bit more to a blue. There we go, make it a little bit lighter. There we go. Actually, I'm just going to colorize this entire thing to a darker blue. So, let me explain a few things about the hue saturation. When I'm moving the hue, what is understanding? So imagine, okay, here the actual color is on the blue, but I am not getting blue. If I go to the red, for an example, it depends. So here, the blue is becoming red, but the light bulb is becoming blue. But even though I'm on red, what is happening here is that every single time I'm changing the color, it's choosing a different type of color depending on what you are selecting. And that's very normal because the spectrum of colors, when you're choosing a red and you already have a red inside of here, it's choosing the opposite color. If you look at the color wheel, it's choosing the opposite of this. How can I make sure that when I'm selecting the color, I want everything to look like that color specifically? And it's over here. You have a button called Colorize. And what this does, if I press on, everything becomes that color. Everything. If I'm on red, it's on red. If I'm on blue, it's on blue. And everything goes in between that. Okay? So I'm going to choose like a purple kind of cyan color here, blue cyan. There we go. Perfect. So using this mask, adjustment layers comes with masks. I can actually adjust all of this. So first of all, Control I on the mask, and I'm going to paint a little bit on the water, only the water. By painting in white, I'm able to transform the colors to a much deeper blue. There we go. Actually over here I don't want the blue. I want it to stay rustic and that color. Okay, sorry, I had to do a small little pause there. There we go. Good. Now, let's add the picture of a fish. So let's go to pictures, grab some fish right here, scale them down. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. Rasterize the layer itself. Alright, so with the fish selected, what I'm going to do here is remove a few of them. Now there's multiple ways I can do this. I can mask them out, I can select them, but I prefer selection here. So what I'm going to do is select the polygonal lasso tool right here on the top left, and I'm going to select, so I want this one, and this one, and the bottom one right here, and close my loop. So I have my selection, but if I press delete on my keyboard, the ones I selected will get deleted. I don't want this. What I want is the opposite. I want to keep these and delete everything else around it. So I have my selection, select on the top right here and say inverse or shift control I. So by doing this, by pressing that button and I press delete, everything else will get deleted except the ones I wanted. So what I'm going to do here is just move them a bit up, like so. Great. And I'm going to create a mask. So fish, my layer is selected, I go down and I create a mask right here. And with this mask, what I'm going to do is just paint in black a little bit of the bottom of the fish that is under the water. So like something like this. That way it seems like it's popping out of the water. Just a little bit. There we go. And now I would like a small reflection. I did not cover this in the class, so please look over this for this tutorial. So I'm gonna take this entire composition and copy it. So I select everything. So click on the top layer, shift click to the bottom one, and all of the layers will be selected. Right click, duplicate, and I get copies of all of them. So I have exactly the same copies. I don't touch anything. They're still selected. I'm going to right click and say merge layers. So now I have a layer with everything on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to control T on that specific layer. So this is called the reflection layer. There we go. Control T. I'm going to hold the right. So right here, let me show you. I'm going to be, this is for scaling. If I move the mouse a bit up, I'm going to be able to rotate this. So I'm going to rotate this, flip it 180 degrees. And I'm going to press V on my keyboard and move it down. There we go. Reduce the opacity of that reflection just so I can see where I'm aiming at. And Control T again so I can transform it. Right click on the layer and it says flip horizontal, which is exactly what we want. So I can position it right here, like so. Now something else I'm going to do is I'm going to squash it. I'm going to do something like so and position it right here. That way it kind of lines up perfectly and the reflection is not the same size as the original image. Okay? Press enter to finish my transformation. And I'm just going to add a mask on the actual reflection and paint in black this part right here. Everything else around it. And a little bit of the light bulb right here. And this part right here. There we go. Let me increase a little bit the opacity since I'm done with the complex areas. There we go. And now to give it a little bit more shadow, I'm going to create a new layer, so bottom right, new layer, this button right here, and I'm going to paint in a very soft brush of black. So opacity very low, something like 19%, and I'm just going to paint a little bit of black under that original image. And reduce the opacity of the shadow. And there we go. Created. So make sure you check the original tutorial that I have linked down below for the comments. And this is more in depth for my class to be able to understand how he did his steps and how it all transformed and how masks work. So I really hope you enjoyed this series. Part 5, sorry, is going to be coming tomorrow. If you like these videos, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Bye, guys.